month-end review used to be a human process. You kick it to a senior accountant. They poke holes in the financials, fine. Now AI does that. So like the month-end review process is gone. And then that changes how you staff, because month-end used to have to do a lot more work for accounting. So you'd have to have extra staff just to handle the month-end crunch. But if the work, the daily review, the reconciliation, the categorization is happening real time on an ongoing basis, you can now level your staffing requirements, which change the profitability and the structure of an accounting firm.
We are live on the Venture to Victory podcast, where we look at the entrepreneurial journey from startup to exit. I am pumped today. We've got Enrico Palmerino in the house. How you doing, Enrico?
Doing great. Thanks, Tim.
All right. So listen, we all, whether you work for a company or you own a company, as we do, you know what March and April is for most companies. It's tax season, right? It's chaotic. There's always this rush to do it. So I thought it'd be a great time to bring someone in this wonderful season to talk about accounting. But it's not going to be boring talk about accounting. It's going to be about AI and how it's impacting everything in the world. But whether you are a company or an individual, you know it's a crazy time. We all have to deal with taxes and that process. Taxes drive so much, from public policy to lending to investing to personal savings, and even family and business migration from state to state has to do with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with Enrico and how AI is affecting the game hugely in the accounting space, and how Botkeeper, his company in particular, is shaping the game. Since I was young, I think it was my father or someone said, "Hey, accounting is the language of business." And when I heard language of business, I started learning about debits and credits and balance sheets and P&Ls when I was a little kid, even running other businesses as you did. So we're going to chat about that a little bit. But I want to do a quick intro for the group, Enrico, really quickly, because our primary goal on this pod is to dive into the mind of a true entrepreneur. And we're going to look at your long, successful journey. And hopefully we'll draw some wisdom and inspiration from that as well. So I will say, based on my research and our pre-pod discussion, this is going to be a fun podcast because you are really the quintessential entrepreneur. And if anyone's out there who has started a business or is thinking about starting a business, you're going to absolutely love this podcast, because this is what it's really all about. And here's why. Enrico literally started his entrepreneurial journey, well, at least where I'm picking up steam. It may have started even earlier, but in middle school, selling candy bars at local sporting games and hot dogs in supermarkets. Using those proceeds, he invested those profits. He rolled those into gumball and vending machines, placing them in various storefronts around his hometown in Western Massachusetts. Now, again, by the end of middle school, now think about that. That's primarily 7th and 8th grade. He had expanded to 20 locations. And then in high school, he moved on and was running a landscaping company and was distributing energy drinks. So, man, you've been doing this since you were a little boy. Then he decided to move up to the big arena, college, actually. From his dorm room, he founded a company called ThinkLite, which automated lighting analysis, design, and manufacturing. It literally grew from the dorm room to number 46 on Inc. 500's list. Now, that is insane. And it resulted in Enrico being ranked second among America's top 25 entrepreneurs under 25, as ranked by Bloomberg Business Week. I mean, my God, and you weren't even out of college yet. Pretty amazing.
I could drink and celebrate.
Yes, you could not drink and celebrate. Maybe when you're a senior, you're officially able to do that. I think you're 21 or 22 and you're a senior. Today, his company Botkeeper has raised over $100 million in funding from our key investors like Craycroft, Google's Gradient Ventures, and Ignition Partners, just to name a few. There's a lot of other investors, both institutional and private, that are involved in that. There are over 100 accounting firms and thousands of small businesses that depend on Botkeeper for their bookkeeping.
Like almost 300 and nearly 10,000 now. So
wow, we've got to update some of that.
I got to update my LinkedIn
stuff. I know it's already a great. I mean, it was already a great story, and it's getting even better. And Enrico's been personally ranked among the top 30 most inspiring business leaders, as well as one of the 100 most influential people in accounting. So at those big accounting trade shows, you must be the Elon Musk.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I'd say I definitely was causing some strife in the accounting industry at first. Showing up with
Yeah.
Jordans, jeans, and a T-shirt in an industry that wore dress shoes and slacks and button-ups and blazers. So
Well, it sounds like a true rebel, and we love that on the Venture Victory podcast. So let's jump into it. So my first question when you hear about this again, and I wanted to go through some of that stuff because a lot of people start companies when they're young or they say they're an entrepreneur. But when you're building a significant business with multiple locations and you're rolling profits from one to another, and you're at 12 or 13 years old and you keep on going, then you go through that in high school and then in college and you start in your dorm room, a company that leads you to the top 5 on Inc. magazine, and you haven't even graduated from college yet. There's something there. And I guess, we've always had the old question, are great entrepreneurs, is it something that's inherent? Are you born with it? Or is it something that you develop? Where did that spirit come from you? Was it like something you just observed in people? Did it come from maybe a family member, a father that owned a business? Or was it just kind of something intrinsic that you just always felt from the time you were a little kid?
I think it's the classic combo, right? Nature versus nurture. It's usually never one or the other. So I knew as a kid, I always beat to my own drum. I had been diagnosed with like ADD or ADHD, and so naturally I was just kind of like, I do my own thing. Like I don't follow the rules. I hated the idea of working for someone else and having to listen. I don't know how to put it. But yeah, I think that, and then the other side of the equation was, I watched my dad, who ran a supermarket at the time, and it was like so cool to see it. My grandfather had started this supermarket years ago, and just see like the impact it had on a community and the number of people it employed, and like everywhere you went, they're like, "Oh, you Mark's son?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." Like, "Oh, I work in the deli," or "My cousin worked there, bag groceries," or whatever it was. And I thought that was super cool. But there was also like my dad was working like 6, 7 days a week, like crazy hours. And that wasn't terribly attractive. Then my grandfather on my mom's side, he had started his own business, and it was more of like a solopreneur. But he had the greatest schedule. He was like financially free, but he like wrote his own hours. So like he was always home for dinner, always was breakfast with everyone, took time off when he wanted to take it off. And I was like, I want to do both. Like I want to be able to own my time. Because at the end of the day, if you're a slave to your own business, then like, what's the point in doing it? And at the same time, I want to build something big. And then when I got to college, I grew up in a small little town, more cows than people. So
Hmm.
building a business was like I was locally focused and locally minded. So I was just thinking. And then in college at Babson, it's an international business. So I'm hanging out with these kids whose parents have like founded Oracle or UGG, or like Tiffany was in my class, and like I'm getting to see like what global scale means, and that was like so impressive to me, not just like from the finance side of the equation, but it was just like, holy crap, I could have meaning on this planet when I die, feel like I made a change, and I'm
Yeah.
not like, I relate it to being like an ant in an anthill. It's like big to me, but like in a grand scheme of things, someone could just step on it or it just disappears and no one would notice. So yeah, that would, and I was just driven. Like I work really hard. Like I used to tell people, I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room, but I out hustle and outwork anyone else in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really true. I've always told people the same thing, that you can literally outwork 95% of the people out there if you want to. And I don't think that's changed from, decades ago to today. It's the same formula for success. And I've always said, even in hiring, because obviously you run a executive recruiting firm that, for decades. And the smartest person in the room isn't necessarily the best person in the room, right? There's a lot of skills that go into
Or the
that.
most successful person in the room.
Yeah, the person that's the most disciplined, has that most competitive drive, is able to stick with it and weather through the challenges and inevitable wrenches that hit you out of left field. And people that show a repeatable track record of being able to do that always are the bigger winners, more than, IQ and everything all combined. So I think that's a common theme that you see in all entrepreneurs, and it has to be there with someone like you who's a serial entrepreneur, right? Or
Yeah.
else you would have said, through one of those earlier adventures you had, you would have said, "Wow, I did it. It was great, but man, it was just too stressful on me." But instead, you're
Or
like,
just
"Hey, I've
pure
got to."
luck.
Well,
I,
but I think you by doing it repetitively over and over again, obviously there's something in the nature of an entrepreneur that enjoys the chaos, enjoys kind of the challenge of, barely surviving, and then in the thrill of making it, pulling through and making it at the end. Um, and I see that with everybody. Why else would you do it?
yeah. And it's one of those things too where I don't think people are like being driven does not necessarily mean working the most hours in a day.
Yeah.
Like in the early days, for sure. I mean, the way I look at it is like it's a 10,000 hour rule. If you want to be an expert and like really learn what you do, yes, and you gotta work a ton of hours. But then it's always like the work smarter, not harder. Like these days, now I'm trying to not just do 15 hours a day. What I've noticed is like mentally I can like my synapse like fire. I can make better decisions. I can have like clarity moments of like innovative ideas if I'm not working more than 10 hours a day. But now I have to like really conscientiously think about what I'm doing in those 10 hours a day and uber prioritize my time to get the biggest bang for the buck out of that time, because I know that's where it's going to be most impactful. If I do another 5 hours a day, I'll punch in another 5 hours. I'll get a bunch of busy work done. But like, how meaningful or impactful is it going to be on the business is arguably very questionable. So,
Yeah,
and
and I
I've
think
made
that's
these
something.
trades, and I've seen the impacts of my business like move faster, and even the teams responded like, "Wow, this is like great. Whatever you're doing now, just keep doing it because you're coming with more energy and you're getting more things done." So,
Well, I'm sure this affects BotKeeper as well, but one of the promises of AI is this ability to kind of schedule your day where you could take lower activity tasks, right, that still take up the same amount of time, and have those automated in some way through AI. And then you can spend more of that high energy, kind of deeper,
cerebral.
kind of mental cerebral time, right, towards the activities that are most important to you. And that's the ultimate output, right? To take what you are best at, what is most important, what's going to drive the biggest impact. Go
Yep.
long on that, right? The
Yeah.
problem entrepreneurs don't have, right, is they're resource constrained. So you find yourself multitasking or doing lots of different things and never being able to really focus. And hopefully, when you raise $100 million, at least in the earlier days, that gives you some capital to free up to hire people to help you. But I think in the world we're moving with AI, people are thinking a lot about how I can do a lot more with less with those lower added activities. I think what you mentioned earlier was kind of interesting, kind of fork in the road too, which is the solopreneur, which we're seeing a lot today because of technology, whether it's people that are doing stuff online, webcasting, or people that are running like individual businesses. You do have that flexibility and that freedom. And that is absolutely amazing. And I think for a lot of people, or most people, that's going to be a great lifestyle. But to some degree, it does limit the amount of impact you can make. Now, there are
For
people out
sure.
there like a Joe Rogan or someone who does make a big impact because the audience is so large. But I think overall, you have to really have a company with a lot of people with big vision and goals to make that huge impact. I think that is the fork in the road. So it's pretty interesting that you looked at that and thought, hey, I need to go that route, even though it's more difficult, because I do want to leave this world saying, hey, I did make an impact in my own
Yeah.
special way.
And I
Yeah.
think like the key is like don't lose sight of like the life's short and it's going to pass by way too fast. And at the end of the day, if you achieve and accomplish all the things you wanted with your business, like, do you have regrets at your deathbed? And most people I know who are like, I just they're like not coming home. Like I have two daughters, right? And
Yeah.
I drop them off every day. I pick them up from school every day. I go to their stuff and then I come back. I punch some extra hours in, spend some time with my wife, get like a workout in, and found this way to juggle it. But I know people who are like, yeah, it's just, I'm for the next 3 years, I'm just not going to see my kids. And that's the sacrifice I'm making for the long term. But guess what? The thing that no one likes to tell you is there's no guarantee that that 3 years you're going to punch in is going to equate to the outcome that you want. And you're way better off just like altering your time or what you do. Just don't do emails. Like stop
Yeah.
sending emails. Like there's literally, if it's urgent, someone's going to call me. And if
Yeah.
like someone's pissed that I didn't respond to an email, it got lost in spam. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
and I used to spend so much time on these like low value things that you can make sure you die without regrets. And you can still have the impact. Like I win. I'm not a lack of competitive person. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in like work-life integration. And yeah, so I'm not making trades on outputs. I'm just prioritizing the most important things in my life, which is a very short-lived one. So yeah,
I was going to say, I moved around for a bit. I was going to say this for the end because I actually saw this on a Facebook post this morning, but I think it says so much about what you're talking about too, which is really the importance of life. And it says, life is strange. We come with nothing and we fight for everything. And in the end, we leave everything and go with nothing.
yeah,
Life is a fleeting journey, a cycle of gaining and letting go. We arrive with empty hands, yet we spend our days chasing, building, and holding on as if we can outrun time itself. We grasp at love, success, meaning, desperate to make something of the brief moments we are given. And yet, no matter how much we gather, there comes a day when we must release it all. But perhaps the beauty of life is not in what we keep, but in what we give and the love we share, the kindness we leave behind, the lives we touch along the way. I mean, doesn't that kind of, and I have it available because I read it and posted, shared it with my wife this morning, and just
nice.
the serendipity that we were talking about.
Yeah,
But doesn't that really summarize summarize it all?
totally. I mean, like, listen, life's a three-legged stool, and if you got one leg that's broken, the other two aren't gonna be doing well. So like, while you think, and like I've seen this happen with too many, it literally happening right now, left and right. People I know who went just totally all in and didn't like make room for personal interests, like what
Yeah,
makes you personally happy, like other than doing this thing for your business, and then like life and family.
yeah,
Guess what? Now they have, instead of spending a little bit of time every day with family, they're now going through major distractions with divorces and overhauling like childcare and stuff like that because they were never home. And I was like, what do you expect? You can't just like put that part of your life on standstill. And if you don't put enough time in the business, then the business is going to have financial stress and other issues that are going to impact your home life. And if you don't
yeah.
take time for yourself, then you're going to be like questioning what the hell you're doing all this for because you don't ever get to do anything you want to do. But if you do those three things and you balance it appropriately, all three cylinders fire better and you're going to like go way further and arguably way faster than you would by just focusing on one. So
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
about,
And it definitely is, and I think an area that for entrepreneurs, because it is so demanding, true entrepreneurship, like at the tech level that we see, where you're backed by VC firms, it's a 24/7 thing. And I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs now kind of rethinking the health aspect of it. Like you said, it's not just balance with your, integrating your family life into it and extracurricular things, but also you got to take care of your health. There's this old saying that, when you're healthy, you have 1,000 challenges. When you're healthy, you have a thousand problems. When you're sick, you only have one. And I think a lot of people are looking back and saying, look, I have to find a way of prioritizing my health as well, because what's the point of having a big successful company and
if
having a
you
great
take time for
exit
your
and then you're
health,
sick?
you're going to be more awake and alert when you're doing your business. And like,
Yeah.
that's going to mean you're going to have better decisions. But I also like, here's the caveat because there's there's like such the counter of that, which is like work-life balance. And I do not believe in that. Like it doesn't work. Like I don't have equal time with my family and equal time with my work. That is a recipe for total failing your business. Your business is going to demand every minute and hour of the day that it can get.
Hmm.
But the difference is like you got to like focus on moments. So I focus on the most impactful, the fewest number of things I can do for the business that are going to be most impactful. I stack rank my day every single day, and I just dive into that. And I'll literally just blitz and cancel meetings, like not answer email or Slack for weeks on end, just to get those things done. Same thing with a family. While I might not be around for like 10 hours of the day with them, and like most of that's a waste of time. You're like lollygagging on your phone, or you're like cleaning up the house. When I do spend time with my family, we're doing like eventful things that are leaving like lasting memories. Or when I'm in it, like my phone, literally on the weekend, my family hates it. You can't get a hold of me on the weekend. I don't even like take my phone. I'm just like all in on my kids during those moments. So it's just do something big and impactful. There's a great book. It's out there. It's called The Power of Moments. Like if you kind of live work and life according to that, it's a great way to balance that stool without actually balancing the hours. It's like,
Yeah, that's really great advice. I love all these great stories. I'm hoping people are listening to this or entrepreneurs are really kind of connecting with this because this is the nature of what you guys do. One of the things we talked about earlier in the pre-pod I thought was really fascinating that you don't often hear on podcasts. I'd like to touch on that for a moment, which was you built this great lighting company up when you're in college. You won all these awards. You got high ranking, both personal, both with Inc. 500. And then you had an exit to it. And you had mentioned earlier that for years and years and years, everything you did, you were talking about this to everyone, family, friends, business, constituents, because you're the classic entrepreneur. You're selling this great vision of this really cool thing that I'm doing, and you want everybody to know. And it almost became your identity in the same way maybe a great athlete, it becomes his or her identity from the time they're young basically up to maybe mid to late 20s at the latest, right? Then you kind of run your physiological cycle out. And then a lot of times you're after that, you're left empty, like with, okay, this has been my identity and it's over. I became a pro athlete for 5 years and I'm done. Or I built this company, everything I talked about every day. It's like, okay, I sold it. Matter of fact, it's one of the number one reasons why I won't call it an entrepreneur in the same sense as a VC-backed company, but a lot of people that have built businesses and the business is consuming their life. And people are like, well, why don't you just sell it and take all that money and then live the life of Riley? And the reason they don't sell it is because their whole identity is based on that. Then what do? Where is their feeling of significance and importance? You're the guy that used to own X, right? Or YZ, right? So I'd love to share that story with me because I think it's really important for people that are out there.
yeah, I mean, face it, like there's something about an entrepreneur, like we're wired slightly different. Like we were talking a little bit about this nature versus nurture. And like if you have both things come together, you're gonna have like the nurture that's going to encourage you to do this unnatural thing that and that's also why I think like the suicidal rate and the depression rate and all these other things in entrepreneurial, like as in entrepreneurship is like among the highest of fields. And that you could like look this up. But the it goes I'd be willing to bet like this is a decent part of it. It's not I don't think like the suicidal rate is either just dependent on when a business fails. I think it's like when people leave a business, there's an identity aspect to it. And to face it too, like entrepreneurs are interesting. Right? They're doing interesting things, or at least you're challenging or trying to do something interesting. You're not being like when you're talking to people, you're not like, let's talk about like a sports team and like something I literally have no control over. Like I can root for it, we can like talk about what's going on, but is that in no way, shape, or form is that conversation about anything I'm doing to change world, society, humanity, whatever. And most of the time, if you're talking about like a 9 to 5, like you're just like, how's life? Oh, work's good and da da da. It's like basic. But everyone I talked to had either like read something about ThinkLite or had heard something about it. And everyone's always like, it was my family who couldn't wait to like, hey, what's going on with the business? How's the lighting company doing? What do you like? How many people do you have now? What's new technology? Where do you think the field is changing? And like, and it doesn't even have to be like related to lighting. Like I was talking diodes, and then we were talking like automation, and then we were talking like people want to have stimulating, interesting, thought-provoking conversations. Fast forward, you sell this business. And for the longest time, I was introduced to people. Hey, here's Enrico. He's an entrepreneur. He's got this really cool lighting company. You should talk to him. He's whatever. Or it'd be, he's building these cool things, and if you're interested in that, there you go. But it was always, my name was so intertwined with this business. When it's gone, now what the hell do I talk about? What have you been up to? Oh, I went on the beach and
So it's
read.
depressing. It can be
Like,
depressing. Yeah.
it's
Right.
super.
Depressing.
I actually, like, I at one point in time, there's like a whole article on this about, and I share it publicly because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who go through this. But I got like seriously depressed. I got it. You'd think like I had this exit, got money. Like everyone's like, and this goes to tell you, I don't think entrepreneurs chase dollars. I think they chase impact and purpose. And almost overnight, it felt like my impact and purpose were gone. I
Yeah.
had money to buy things, but I'm not a terribly material person. You buy a nice car, you buy a nice house, then what the hell? You go to dinner every night, and then that gets boring. You, like, travel some places, beaches all look the same. So and then what do I talk about? What's interesting? And then I'm talking to, my network is entrepreneurs. I'm talking to entrepreneurs. I'm like, oh, and they're like telling me all these cool things they're doing and how they're changing the world, and they're making like coaches accessible by an app, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like, what are you up to? I was like, I'm thinking about what my next thing is gonna be, and you just, then I start to like wonder, in life, like I'd strive. I had this idea that I could be like working really hard, like build up, and it kind of like flash, swoop of outcome. And then you're like playing like the video game with the cheat codes, which if you've ever done that, it ruins the game. Like you literally, like, there's no competition. It sounds great, and it is amazing for the first 15 minutes, and then it just loses all its enjoyment. And then couple that with, the game of life now, you got some cheat codes and it's not as exciting or challenging, and you have no sense of identity. So yeah, it was tough. And I would say I tried to take some time interpersonally to figure it out. And I don't know if I've ever, like, being real, I don't
Yeah.
think I've
You
ever.
did. By the way, you did figure it out. So your answer was, I'm going to just go out and raise $100 million and start a new one.
Yeah,
And
well,
then when that's over, because the impact's greater, I'm going to feel even more depressed. So it gets back to the idea, really, is entrepreneurship, like true entrepreneurship, like you have and many others out there, is it at the end of the day just an addiction?
I mean, we talked about this a little bit, where we were saying like, I remember when we were like, oh my God, we did like $100,000. And I was like, oh my God, we did $1 million. And then literally the next like 2, 5, 10 million, like, didn't bring nearly any joy compared to the first. And then it's like, well, what's the number? Is it like, is it when it's doing 10 million or 100 million? And I don't think it ever actually gets better. Like, I think it's like, if you played cards as a kid and dollars and quarters and you won, you had this rush and exhilaration. You make it money, like, you need to be gambling at much higher stakes.
Yeah.
And I think that the higher stakes, the real, I think, high that you're chasing is purpose. It's like,
Yeah.
and impact. It's not the dollars. It's like, I can do something that's like impact locally. If I impacted nationally, like, how do I impact internationally? And if I impacted internationally, then how do I fucking go to space? And like, look at the entrepreneurs, what they're doing, who have achieved the
Right.
utter epitome of success at a national or international level. They are all launching freaking spaceships and trying to do the next thing on another planet. So I think
But
it's an addiction.
but that is chasing an addiction. And it's a great addiction. Some addictions are good for you, right? Being
Yeah.
really healthy
And
and
there's
always going to
way
the
worse
gym.
ones I could have.
Yeah.
Like starting businesses and employing people.
You can say that addict changed the world in a great way. So again, I think it's an interesting topic, to explore a little bit. Well, that's amazing that you're doing it. So let's jump to Botkeeper for a minute, because I do want to talk about what you're doing. I don't want to get too much into accounting, but Pete, you think about it at a basic level. Let's say taxes. Taxes drive so much of human behavior. Like I said earlier before, it even drives where you and your family or your business decide to live in many cases. It affects everything from where you buy and sell, the business you start in, your ability to raise money. It's such a big number and it's so important. And you jumped into this industry, and it's an industry now that AI is impacting. Anyone that a lot of us, people use personal accounting software, whether it's Quicken or whatever, or they use QuickBooks, or they use, for the businesses, they'll use, larger platforms for that. But everybody in some way is touching some type of bookkeeping or accounting system. And I know that
Two truths in
you're,
this world: death and taxes. And yeah.
yeah, that really is death and taxes. God, that's so true. As the old expression goes. So I know your business is primarily serving actual accounting firms, so enterprises, mostly larger, but some SMB accounting firms. But not to get mired too much in that. But let's talk about, how is artificial intelligence and AI, how is it impacting that industry right now?
It's been crazy to see how it's changed, because we're one of those. It's when I tell people I'm like, can start CEO of an AI company for accounting, like, oh, it's awesome. You started recently, and I'm like, 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, oh, like you're an old AI company. Like AI existed. Like, yeah, it did. But the change is pretty substantial. I mean, we set out, like, our mission statement was to revolutionize accounting, and this past year, the end of the year, we basically like reflected back, and we were able to like put the flag in the sand that said, like, we actually have truly revolutionized and impacted the industry. And I'll put it in perspective. So pre-Botkeeper, and we don't touch taxes. We automate the bookkeeping, which makes tax filing a lot easier. I have, like, personally 27 entities and stuff, partnerships and Schedule Cs, and you name it, that I probably spend 1 to 2 hours a year to do my taxes. I put this, just take what's already done, and I hand it off to my accountant, and it's square. And I know people would spend way longer. So, like, that, just at a personal level, think about that impact. I'm now not wasting time doing
yeah.
something that I don't think anyone really enjoys. But from a business standpoint, from an accountant standpoint, they used to spend a whole bunch of time, like, looking at transactions that would come in a bank feed or manually coding stuff from statements. Now AI is doing 75 to 80% of that. Real time, instantaneous, not after the fact, a month later. So, like, first and foremost, a big chunk of the high volume transactions are taken care of at a level of accuracy that no human can touch. 99.6% accuracy is what we average.
Wow. Wow.
Two, it's real time, like data at your fingertips, like data and outputs and analysis is going to mean you can make quicker decisions. And if the data is accurate, then the decisions, you can feel more confident. Reconciliations, just the bane of everyone's existence, how to grab these statements,
Of course, the
make sure
worst.
the numbers tie out. We automated that. So we will even automatically fetch a statement from the institution, line item, extract all the detail, reconcile everything out, fully autonomous, no human involvement whatsoever. That totally changes accounting workflow, because accounting workflow used to be transactions come in, code them, month end comes, reconcile accounts. So reconciliation gone, 70-80% of the transactions gone. Month end review used to be a human process. You kick it to a senior accountant, they
Yeah.
poke holes in the financials, fine. Now AI does that. So, like, the month end review process is gone. And then that changes how you staff, because month end used to have to do a lot more work for accounting. So you'd have to have extra staff just to handle the month end crunch. But if
Sure.
the work, the daily review, the reconciliation, the categorization is happening real time on an ongoing basis, you can now level your staffing requirements, which change the profitability and the structure of an accounting firm. And then we automated away journal entries and debt schedule entries. Like, we've continued to find things. Now we're starting to, like, generate insights. So telling firms, here's how much the AI did for you, and here's the things you need to do, and here's the staff that has capacity to take on more clients, and here's the staff you should, like, make sure, like, they could probably use some more training, or like double click on them because they're not performing at the same degree that others are. Or, like, giving you those insights to, and here's 10 more things you could automate that you're not automating right now that will lead to this many more hours of savings. So it has changed. And if you, to, like, think about that level of impact on an entire industry in 10 years time, that's
Incredible.
immense. The next 3 years, it'll be really interesting to see what's going to happen with what's left to automate. But really, where I think, like, the innovation is going to be is less in the processing, and it's going to become more in, like, the process data and what it means and what to do with it. Because in an ideal world, we'd be able to, like, ask the AI. AI would be like, "Hey, I found an area of opportunity to increase your gross margin by 5% by switching vendors to this and this, or by
Yeah.
consolidating expenses as such. Like, click here to enact the decision." Amazing. Like now moving so much faster and more intellectually on growing the business. And that's what
It'll
it is
also,
going to happen.
I'd imagine it'll also take whatever the current and future tax code is, be able to look at the current tax code and also kind of match that and say, hey, based on things happening now, here are some possibilities of things that you can be doing. I mean, traditionally, you would rely on the knowledge of your main CPA, right?
Yeah.
Whoever
Yeah.
the auditing firm has that
The
knowledge
human
to
doesn't
present
go
an
away.
idea for you. Yeah.
I did a talk with Cal Penn, amazing human being, and we were talking about this dynamic, which is you send me a P&L and balance sheet and cash flow and all this financial reporting data. It's like it's a lot to like look at, and I got to comb through everything and figure out what matters or what I can impact. What I want to be able to do and what every business owner wants to be able to do, or every individual who's got to file taxes, I want to be able to call my CPA and be like, what does this mean and what should I do? Like, cut to the chase. I have other shit I got to worry about and I'm busy on. You tell me what I need to do. And that's where the human comes in, because AI doesn't have, it's always going to lack context. Example I give people all the time is AI can tell you your inventory levels are rising disproportionate to revenue. Here's the best practice recommendation. If it went out and looked at the web, it would say like reduce inventory costs, like wholesale sell off, or just stop buying. What it's not going to know is you just landed a contract with Walmart and need to be stockpiling in order to fulfill that. So this is where if you're being human and asking your client what matters, even things like if it's, let's say it's like not particular about the business, but I'm like, what are your goals? And your goal is I want to buy a house. Well, buying a house and growing the business as fast as possible don't go well together, because growth usually comes at a cost or at losses, and you need to show profits in order to be able to like get qualified for that
Gets a
mortgage. So
loan.
we're
Yeah.
going to slow growth down, increase profits, get you the mortgage, and then accelerate the business. But if you're not having these human interactions that are centered in like human
Personal
desires,
emotional need. Yeah.
yeah, then
Yeah.
the software is going to potentially just accelerate your ability to make really bad decisions.
Yeah. But so for let's say for a small business, they cannot buy direct, right? They're gonna have to find a bookkeeping or CPA firm that's either using this or white labeling it, and then you get the benefits through working with that firm.
That's what I'd recommend. I mean, the
Yeah.
you could go to our site and get a license. But if you don't know accounting, like our software is going to be like, we found these discrepancies or these things that you need to treat, and it's going to be the most complicated of all your accounting work. And if you don't know accounting, you'd be looking at this being like, I don't know what to do with this, or now just creating a lot of errors. And you're way better off just hiring an accountant who knows what they're doing. Let them use the software so they can do the fastest, best, most accurate, cost affordable accounting for you.
Yeah.
And then you can just focus on running and growing the business.
Yeah, and I have to think that Intuit and big companies like that are gonna, push down to their products AI built into those applications soon too. They're gonna provide some of that for maybe individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're
Yeah.
going to, I think sprinkle it's like you can sprinkle on AI onto like an old product,
Hmm.
but at the fundamental level, like just think of it this way. If you're a big, large company and you're built on like SQL databases, you're not going to have the same advantage that a company like mine on graphical databases to have better performance than an AI. Like, so all these companies are going to sprinkle in, and there's mixed feedback or reviews as to like, is the stuff that they're sprinkling in valuable or impactful? I would say like, if you're going to make a bet on something, like find the cooler, newer company. Be careful
Yeah.
though. There's a lot of wrapper AI companies out there that they don't own the AI. So if
Yeah.
like OpenAI is like, I'm turning off that API, instantly those companies die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a company that's like 5 years old that's doing AI and it's been doing AI, those are really good ones to, if you're going to make a bet on one or like make a system
Yeah.
change, to look at.
I think
Or
someone,
us, like, 10 years, but there's not a lot of us. So that's
somebody, we'll leave that in quotation marks, famously once said, "You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig." So I think
exactly.
that kind of falls into
And
place.
that's what's happening
Uh,
with AI. I mean, you're seeing this even in like the venture space. A bunch of these like recent AI companies, there's not a lot of substance to it.
yeah, yeah, and I
So
think that's good. You're already seeing that now in the venture capital community. So much money was going into AI, but are these really sustainable businesses? Are these just kind of add-on applications that are just kind of small incremental improvements versus a fundamentally new business is solving or tackling, a real problem besides just enhancing productivity.
Or making like a cool widget that can decipher whether it's a dog or a cat. It's like, what's the business use case and how are you gonna make money with that? And does that make sense? I mean, that's I think what our VCs liked about our business is we were like rooted in real business value that we were already generating. But it took a lot of money. Like to have this level impact on an
Yeah.
industry is not cheap. Like it's,
Yeah.
so
Well, so I'm imagining there's tons of growth in the future for you guys. What's kind of like the big opportunity for you and the big challenge for you over the next couple of years?
The big opportunity, I'd argue it's kind of both. So at this stage in the business, we're been trying, and obviously markets are interesting, driving the company to profitability. That comes with, I'd say like the double-edged sword, because I'm driving the company to profitability. So then we can operate at a level and like make decisions with the cash flow and stuff that we want. But that means we're constrained on, how much money we can be investing in innovation and growth. But it also means that then we're forced to find the highest yield ROI like outlets for that. So, and I think we've done a good job because that incremental stress on a business tends to be the good. That's when like cool things are born. And we've come out with some really cool innovations that have our cost of acquisition has dropped substantially. Our conversion rate's gone way up. The number of leads we're generating is more than ever before. The number of firms we're signing is more than ever before. But our marketing budget is a third of what it used to be 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
ago. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, there's an aspect of like we've got 2 or 3 more major releases out in the next quarter or two, and then the opportunity is literally now just go educate. Because what I just told you with like how we've changed the accounting workflow, there's 150,000 accounting firms. And if we got 300 of them, we're a drop in the bucket. So I need to go educate the other 149,900 and da 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 on, hey, like, did you know you don't need to do accounting that way anymore? You can have these margins. You can be home for dinner every night with, wife and kids and get paid more than ever before.
Yeah, I think particularly in April, that would be a big a big thing for most CPAs.
The best story I have to say, like
Yeah.
and this goes to show you like what you do this for. So I had this woman come up to me and she's like, "Oh, Botkeeper," and I was like, "Yeah, the CEO," and she's like, "Oh, amazing! Like I was hoping to meet you," and I was like, "Oh, thanks. You use Botkeeper?" She's like, "No," and I was like, "Oh," she goes, "But my husband does," and I was like, "Oh, that's great." She's like, "I want to cook you dinner." I was like, "Gosh, why?" Ever since my husband started using Botkeeper, he's never missed dinner with me. And like that was not a thing before. But
So
now he makes, and you're like, that's so cool that like you've impacted at the human level with
yeah.
like something you've like, and that to me, that was probably that one thing was all I needed to live on for like the next 6 months of whatever hardships we were going through to like continue pushing through it.
Well, and also, if there's one person that experienced, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, that experience the same thing. And we know that like accounting and legal, these are kind of slower to adopt, more
Yes.
stodgy old industries. Right? I remember years ago, not that long ago, but years ago, the joke used to be, go to your lawyer. They're still using word perfect, right? That was it. And I think it's have that feeling. And so, hey, those are great things that you should be posting online. These are great stories. I'm going to create some great clips around that because I think that's the emotional. I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like, what could I do with the extra time in my day? And in some of these industries, like in accounting, for example, every CPA I've ever known has told their family, March and April is kind of the blackout period. Don't expect to see me. It doesn't matter whether, but it's a bad time too, right? Because everything's happening with your kid's school, like in April, right? Because May is kind of the end of the line, and you don't want to miss that month, and then you're rolling into the summer. So it is a little bit of a conundrum. And I think those stories really, that's part of the selling point, I think, for some of these services that free up capacity. This has been amazing. I could literally talk to you for hours. It's been so much fun. I like to wrap these up with the same question because it is the Venture to Victory podcast, not just about venture capital to exit, but about that idea we talked about earlier, like, taking, venturing out, taking a risk, taking a gamble, going on an adventure to achieve something that's highly impactful or worthwhile. And so I like to end with this question, Enrico, which is, what does it mean to you, whether in business, personal, community, life in general, to be victorious?
If 2 to 3 generations after I die, something I did is still either like permeating, existing, or as like that change is still like long outlived me. That's I
Yeah,
don't even need my name to be on it. I don't care. I don't care if like anyone associates me with it anymore. But if I know that like these changes I've made in the accounting industry forever forward are going to be like, and that impacts a larger people for, it has to be a couple generations. If it's one generation that's like
yeah,
this
yeah,
here is gone, then I feel like I did it. And
yeah,
it's a lot. The other thing is like doing it with friends and with people, and that's, I'm not a solopreneur kind of person. It's way more fun when you do it with people, and then I have a team. Then you'll be like winning together is so much more fun. Like just think about the celebration, like whether you drink or not. Like you go to the bar and like, yay, I made $1 billion, and you're by yourself.
yeah, yeah,
Versus
yeah.
like with a team of people who did it, so much more fun.
Yeah,
The
that,
whole
that is
journey
so
along
much
the
more.
way, a million times more fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even in those moments where you have to sometimes, even though it's always lonely at the top, and some entrepreneurs say, no one fully understands it because you are at the top of the food chain. But I think even when you're wallowing through some of those challenges, having a team around you who's also going through it, the emotional support is a big deal. And I agree with you. That's one of the most exciting things you could do, whether it's in a company or it's sports or whomever. When you do things collectively and you have a collective mission and then you succeed together, it's so much better because that life is meant to have experiences with other people and to share those together. So,
And
um,
no one's gonna win a Super Bowl playing as a solo team, like a one-person team against a full team.
there is no I in team, as they say. Well, look, it's been wonderful having you on. I really do appreciate your time. And that's a wrap for today. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. The Venture to Victory podcast is provided by MatchStar Venture Search. If you're interested in any of our open executive roles or need help sourcing world-class talent for your company, check out our website at matchstar.com.